Sexy and offensive are two concepts very far from each other. Sexy can become vulgar according to how the item is worn and interpreted. From our point of view, we like to enhance everything that is beautiful and sexy in a woman, but never offending, demeaning, or being vulgar. We've always been in love with women, and our collections are dedicated to their beauty.
Says Stefano Gabbana of the Italian luxury brand Dolce & Gabbana.
But does this look like an advertisement of a company that has always been in love with women?
High fashion eroticizes violence. Dolce & Gabbana is exemplary of other high fashion companies. Therefore, the brand will be used as a case study. These advertisements not only impact those who are fiscally able to purchase the products, but also those who aspire to own these products.
Whenever I see an advertisement, I desire to own the clothing because I somehow feel like owning the clothing in the advertisement would make me part of an elite group, like the fashion savvy. And I feel like if I was wearing this clothing, I would elevate my status and I'd be living like a sort of high class lifestyle.
Dolce & Gabbana is a global icon of high fashion, with the Dolce & Gabbana Group and licensed partners bringing in the equivalent of $1.8 billion in the 2010-2011 fiscal year.
Dolce & Gabbana has publicly stated on their website that the Dolce & Gabbana woman is strong. She likes herself. However, their advertisements fail to portray women in empowering roles. In fact, women are often portrayed as victims. Dolce & Gabbana eroticizes violence in its advertisements, conveying the message that sexual violence is sexy.
In the following ads, we see female subjects lying defenseless as a group of men surrounds them. In one case, the female subject is being forcefully held down. This ad provoked an international backlash, which led to its modification. However, the modification is also problematic. Given the glass by the man's feet and the vacant look in her eyes, it appears this woman has been drugged. The ratio of men to women is still disconcerting, and the woman remains in a defenseless posture. Women aren't the only victims. This ad shows men are also victims of sexual assault.
Not all of Dolce & Gabbana's advertisements are this explicit. In the following ads, it is unclear whether or not the violence is consensual. Sometimes, the violence seems to take the form of a sexual fetish. Here, the woman is fully clothed and is not in a sexual position. However, she is outnumbered by men who look at her in a predatory manner. Furthermore, her arms are raised, suggesting that she is surrendering. Whether the sexual violence is explicit or ambiguous, it still trivializes sexual assault, influencing the way audiences perceive rape.
And it's important to recognize who this audience is. Dolce & Gabbana's target audiences are between the ages of 15 and 24, which coincides with the age group most likely to be sexually assaulted. This means the people whose perceptions of sexual violence are most likely to be distorted by Dolce & Gabbana's advertisements are the same people who will most likely be made victims of sexual assault.
These brands' advertisements are specifically catered to an audience already likely to be affected by sexual assault. The more explicit advertisements convey the idea that sexual assault is sexy as opposed to criminal, while more ambiguous advertisements blur the line between assault and consensual sexual relations. This not only impacts the way perpetrators interpret their actions, but also how victims understand or misunderstand what has happened to them. 73% of those forced to have sex fail to recognize their experience as rape. That means only 1 in 4 rape victims acknowledge themselves as such. In turn, these explicit and ambiguous advertisements foster a rape culture that distorts the general understanding and implications of sexual assault.
Again, these advertising techniques are not limited to Dolce & Gabbana alone. Brands that employ the use of violence in their advertising include Calvin Klein, Jimmy Choo, Marc Jacobs, and Superette.
As feminist theorist Bell Hooks suggests, rape culture is perpetuated by culturally learned eroticism. It would be ineffective to change high fashion alone because the problem is part of a broader rape culture.
D&G ads play into and reaffirm existing cultural paradigms. We must strive to change the culture surrounding sexual violence. Challenging D&G and related brands is a start. If you are a consumer, you can boycott brands which employ these advertising strategies. If you are a part of this target audience, you can boycott the magazines and video channels in which these brands appear. As a member of this rape culture, you can be more critical of the messages Dolce & Gabbana and other brands convey.